Okay, welcome back. We got all the jitters out and we're ready to roll here. Welcome back to Root to Fruit. My name is Marcel Tessara, and I am working to dig into the roots of the contextual behavioral sciences so that the fruit that we deliver, the fruit that I deliver, and all us burgeoning third wavers deliver is as pristine as possible and precise. So today I'm fortunate enough to have Dr. Evie Gould joining me to talk about some of these roots. Thanks for being here with me. I am on a quest to get some guidance from some experts. And how'd you like that word, expert, Evie?
A lot of uncomfortable feelings showing up. I was literally just thinking, I don't know about that.
And you are from the land of RFT.
Depends what that. No, if you mean Ireland, yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's quite funny actually, because I feel very lucky to have been introduced to RFT actually in my undergraduate program,
Oh, wow.
which I think is pretty unique, and that would have been 20 years ago. Ish.
Wow.
But I had the privilege of getting Dennis O'Hora. I was a visiting professor doing something at the University of Ulster, and got to select an advanced ABA class that was all RFT based, which was amazing. There was only, I think, probably 5 of us in the class. But yeah, I guess so. Yes, I guess that's true in a way.
In a way, wow, that's amazing. I am impressed. Let me introduce you before we continue on to all of those who aren't familiar with you. And so you are a clinical associate at McLean Hospital at Harvard and a research associate at Harvard Medical School. Do some training for clinicians in especially BCBA clinicians, and have recently focused on compassion, teaching compassion to BCBA folks. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true. Compassionate care, or relational skills, I would call it.
Okay.
I guess relationship building. It's very interesting.
And I stumbled there. I wanted to say, in terms of your research at Harvard Medical School, you're looking at treatment evaluation for kids with OCD, and also training complex skill acquisition to adolescents and children with autism.
Yeah. So McLean it's primarily child and adolescent psychiatry, but I've always had a foot in research, and so actually most of my research ends up being done in collaboration with people outside of my workplace.
Mm-hmm.
But Lisa Coyne I'm lucky to work with Lisa Coyne in turn. Mm-hmm. She's very interested in research. So I just tag along. Basically, I just tag along with whatever she's doing.
Yeah.
And then on my side part, my behavioral analysis side, I do my own research with colleagues. And that tends to be treatment evaluation research with around parents, interventions, skill acquisition in autism,
mm-hmm.
And ACT-based interventions for staff. I'm very lucky to be getting asked to be on people's dissertation committees, which is super fun for me, and seeing the cool stuff that a lot of the students are doing in the behavior analysis program, particularly at the Chicago School. Actually, there's the really cool ACT stuff going on. But yes, recently I was doing a study with Dr. Louisa Canyon on relationship building skills. Like, how do we train? Actually, I think primarily I'm a clinician though, Marcel.
You're a clinician.
I would say
okay.
that.
Yeah.
So research is like a part of what I do, but mainly.
Yeah, I didn't mention that you're at New England Center for OCD and Anxiety, which is with Lisa Coyne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how do you think that encountering RFT so early in your BCBA journey?
I fell in love with ABA first, also due to luck of managing to get a practicum placement in the States during my undergraduate degree. But I had just wanted to go to the States. It had nothing to do with me wanting to do ABA or anything to do with behavior analysis. I was just like, I want to get out of here, Northern Ireland, and go to America. And was introduced to Trevor Stokes at University of South Florida, who was working in he'd formed a learning behavior clinic there in the Shriners Hospital. So this was a very cool clinic that was getting the referrals from like nurses or doctors within the orthopedic hospital for kids, where they were noticing, you know, treatment compliance issues or learning disabilities that were interfering with the kids' progress in treatment, or behavioral issues either related to autism or something like that, or related to trauma. Maybe, you know, some of the kids who came to our clinic had experienced some traumatic event that had resulted in them ending up in this hospital. And there was a lot of mental health issues that came along with that, for example, or family issues and things like that. So it was a really cool clinic to be thrown into, and then just got to follow him around and was like, what is this? Because I was in a psychology degree, a general psychology degree, and had not really come across ABA except in the context of rats and pigeons. And we actually had a rat lab at the University of Ulster at the time, and had done some stuff in there. But I dismissed it as like mathematical, like rats and pigeons, like schedules of reinforcement, don't really, not interesting. And then to be thrown into this clinic and be like, what is this amazingly powerful thing that's happening here, where these hopeless cases are coming in the door and being given hope, and these families leave with a sense that things can be better. And to watch the transformation that was happening with those families was just so astounding to me. And this idea, this really compassionate idea that everybody's behavior makes sense, given the context, given their history. Everyone's doing the best they can given that. And also the humility of the ABA approach, that humility of everyone is being governed by the same principles here. Like, we're not better than our clients. We're not experts. We're equally human in the soup together. And we're all trying to figure this out. And that everybody can change, right? Nobody's a slave to their diagnosis. Right. And I just had never encountered that within psychology before. I had, you know, certainly read poetry and books, the wisdom of others outside of like psychology, but it blew my mind. And so I was just like, I want to be part of that team. That's like what I want to be part of. And then managed to come back and saw Dennis's course and was like, oh, I'll sign up for that. And he blew my mind again, because he presented RFT, but very much in the context of Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland, as you may or may not know, should know, but we've had conflict. We had conflict there for a long time, and still have problems with sectarianism there. But he was presenting RFT in terms of how we could understand prejudice in Northern Ireland and conflict in Northern Ireland, stigma and stereotyping and things like that. And I just thought it was unbelievably fascinating and very cool to think like, wow, if we can unpack this from this behavioral perspective, then we could do something about it. And he didn't really talk about ACT, but I think he did mention it, because when I went to my master's degree later at Bangor University, we were very lucky to have a course in clinical behavior analysis course, I think, or something. We read the ACT book and we talked about RFT. So I think I just was inspired in terms of understanding that behavior analysis could tackle really complex problems that human beings were having.
On that note, I'm wondering, when you train, how important do you think it is for your trainees to accept thoughts and covert, in things that are happening inside as behavior? How important is that?
I think for me, I think it's extremely important to be consistent in your perspective, your philosophy or perspective on how everything works. And so I can't as for me as a behavior analyst, I cannot have thoughts and feelings existing in some other realm or some other, that somehow private events, so to speak, are something different from other kinds of stimuli or behavior.
No.
Like, that doesn't work for me as a behavior analyst. It creates a whole bunch of problems.
Because people get tripped up on this,
Yeah.
It's a big sticking point, I think, for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
metabolizing behaviorism.
Yeah, and I totally understand. I mean, I think I understand that. I guess I can't. I was going to say I totally understand that. I guess I can't say that because I can only also look at this from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and I am a very pure, pretty pure behaviorist.
Yeah.
So I can't really look at this from a different perspective, if that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
I think I understand. I mean, I'm wondering if some of the reasons for that are um, the demystification that happens, or that I wonder, do people struggle with the idea that humans aren't special or that thoughts and feelings aren't special in any way? Or is it like, I'd be curious actually just to talk about, for you to tell me what you think about that. I mean, I do, and I'm having all kinds of thoughts right now, Marcel, about even, because I don't actually believe in public and private. I don't, for me as a behavior analyst, I think the private distinction is purely a pragmatic one. But even then, I'm sort of, I think we run into issues of dualism there when we start talking about public and private events, because we're implying that there's thoughts and feelings are happening in some other domain and that they're not accessible, they're magical in some way, special, different.
I see.
And I don't really find that useful when I'm working, specifically when I'm working with highly verbal humans.
What's the danger there for you? What do you think is problematic about that?
I think it paralyzes me as a clinician, because if I'm obsessed with thinking I have to get inside someone's head and have to somehow find a way to figure out what they're thinking and feeling, or get at something that's happening inside the organism, I'm really stuck as to what I can do or can't do. And I'm fully reliant on the person telling me and then me assuming function based off what they're saying. I think there's things like that show up for me. Whereas if I can, if I think there is no such thing as private events, that the whole organism is behaving in their context, right? The whole organism thinks, that thinking, I think this is a Linda Hayes, I'm pretty sure, or Mitch Running, but that thinking inside your brain is like saying walking happens inside your legs, right? The whole organism engages in a walking behavior through their life or whatever. So the whole organism is involved in thinking. And so I can observe that, right? There's things I can observe. I can look at you right now and I can tell you're thinking. I don't know, I might not exactly know what you're thinking content wise, but function wise, I could observe how it's impacting your behavior. I can see your eyes moving. I can see your kind of head moving, tilting in this way. I can see you smiling now at me, that there's curiosity there. And as I get to know you, I can probably start to hypothesize a bit more about what you're actually thinking. But there's so much more. As a clinician, when I stand back and go, okay, I'm going to observe what I can observe and I'm going to respond to that. And I can observe what I'm experiencing too in the relational piece, and experiencing those functions in the room, that there's much more that I can do, right? There's much more that I can choose to say, or choose to, as Emily would say, like shift the context in some way. I can put something in the room, manipulate the situation to try and get more behavior happening. Does that?
Yeah. You know, it brings up for me, it's kind of like, I guess, you know, at the, where I live, there's a baseball team, and at the stadium, they sell, you know, sausages. We're German, lots of German culture here, bratwursts, and there's a sauce there called the secret sauce. And so the idea is there's some stuff in there you can't really know. And I guess what I'm hearing you say is it's just more about appreciating the sauce rather than kind of working to figure out what's the secret ingredient.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you wouldn't ever want to know what's in the sauce. I think it's just that, well, I guess it's a little different, because what I'm saying is you can't separate the thoughts from the rest of what's happening. Like, you're being stimulated and you're responding at the same time in lots of different ways that you're not conscious of and otherwise. And so I think, you know, I'm having thoughts about, like, contingencies, because you asked about contingencies, but just how we chop up there's this whole behavioral stream, right? This whole thing that's happening, and we chop it up and try to pick parts out of it to look at, because we can't look at all of it at once. So I don't know, where am I going with this? I guess that's a sort of a good metaphor, but not quite working for me, because the secret sauce makes the sauce.
Back to you, as far as what I'm hearing is that there's things going on inside, and as long as we prioritize that over what's actually happening, it could be a little bit dangerous. Is that what maybe happens clinically, if it's like this kind of dualistic thing that I need to unearth inside?
I think you're going to miss a lot of important stuff. You are in danger of putting the problem again back inside the person, which is mentalistic. Yeah. You're in danger of thinking I have to get at this thing inside this person in order to fix this problem, or I can't understand what's going on. I can't observe. We can't observe thought, or like the behaviorists who just, people think this about us, which is not completely true, but that behaviorists just don't deal with thoughts and feelings because we can't measure them. And that's a huge problem, because then you have a behavior analysis or an ABA where you don't consider a person's thoughts or feelings, which is problematic. I think I lost you. Uh-oh.
And so when you're working with someone, I'm just wondering, like, how is it helpful for you to, not necessarily say this, but just the way that you interact with someone clinically, how is it helpful for you to see monism versus dualism?
I think the reason that I moved into this way of thinking, and not everyone within behavior analysis even thinks like I do, just to be clear, but because I would be sat in front of a client who was really, really stuck, and I was really stuck, and I was thinking, I have no idea what to do. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what to do with this feeling or whatever. And then I thought to myself, it's okay though, because the whole organism is behaving. So I can observe there's a whole other bunch of stuff I can observe right now that is not getting inside their head and trying to get at what they're thinking and feeling inside, right? The stuff I can observe the whole organism thinking and feeling. And when I was able to do that, I was like, oh, now I have stuff I can do. I can observe other things in the room to try and tell me what's going on or what I should do next. I can observe my own experience and how the client's behavior is influencing me, functionally speaking. And I can choose to do something based off that. I don't have to, I'm very trapped when I think that I have to get inside the person and put the problem, I'm putting the problem inside them, right? It's what they're thinking that's the problem, it's what they're feeling, and I need to know what they're thinking and feeling in order to solve this problem. I get trapped, I get stuck, I stay stuck, the client stays stuck. I'm really limiting what I can work with. So I guess that's one way I came to really feeling passionate about that. Is because I choose to, and also end up working with very, very stuck people. And I was like, I'm having this image of like clipping my wings or straitjacketing myself whenever I start putting the problem back inside them.
And that makes me think about some of my experiences as a client with therapists who are in that space more. I can only assume, because of how they interacted with me, and the impact of just mind and mind is is not as strong as like just the presence,
full presence, full
yeah.
relational, like behaving in space, and you being part of the context as the clinician. And there's a lot more information available to you regarding how to feel in inverted commas, than just getting the person to tell you some words about what they're thinking or feeling. Not that their verbal behavior isn't important. I think that what people say is important, and that's data. However, will listen to what people are saying, but there's so much more than the words that they're saying that's important. How they're saying it, the tone, the way they're saying it, what happened before they said, well, what happened before they said that, what happened after, what did I do, what did they do, how is that influencing my behavior, what's their body language doing, where are we right now, like what's this person's learning history, like there's so much more going on that I have available to me than just the words that they might say in terms of what they're thinking, if that makes sense. So it's a very freeing way of working, and it's much richer, and the functions, you can get at the layers of function better. And you're not, and I agree with you. I think that for clients, it feels so much different, right? Instead of me just grilling you about what you're thinking and responding purely to the content of what you're saying, I'm really responding to you as a whole human in this room with me. And often I work outside a clinic. I don't just work in a room. Not in pandemic times, but often I'm in the client's home with them, and maybe their parents are there as well. And there's a whole environment going on there. And I'm observing how they're interacting with others. And also, so I feel like I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I hope that gives you a sense of being able to zoom in and zoom out is another way to put that. Like I can zoom in and zoom out and look at lots of different things that are going on.
And one of the things that's coming up for me is that, some people naturally are just gifted with this ability to do this as a clinician. They don't need to be taught the language, right? And that's awesome. And then for the rest of us, this is a place like, what I find in this especially FAP, it's like really breaking down how to develop these skills and develop the relationship in a grounded, scientifically grounded way.
Yeah, what's showing up for me while you're saying that, Marcel, is what I'm talking about is getting actually out of the language-based space and like into my full experience with my senses or something. Like it's like actually being in contact with all of the contingencies, perhaps. And it's very easy when you go to try and learn about this stuff to go back into that language. Like you get mindy about how do I do this, right? How do I do this? What are the rules? How do I become a good observer? How do I analyze this from an RFT perspective? How do I understand the contingencies? Like people get very stuck, entangled in that, and then they're in their heads when they're in front of the client and not actually interacting with, you know what I mean? So anyway, that was just, I was thinking, oh wow, yeah. So for some people, and I agree with you, some people are very much in present moment when they're working. It's like a natural, of course I don't believe in that, but they already have that repertoire and they're really good at it. And then for others, we have to learn it. And it's really hard. And it's hard initially, I think, because you start getting pulled into that mindy space and you're like, am I doing the thing? Am I not doing the thing? What does this mean? Is this a frame of, whatever? Or is it this? What's happening? And then you're not in the moment at all.
So how do we, I would like on that note, because you mentioned this magic contingency word, like how could, as listeners have been following along, considering this more, how can we talk about it in a way that is quote unquote kind of natural, a kind of natural way to think about this in the room clinically? Because it's important to know what's in the context that's controlling the person.
I'm having a few thoughts. The first one was, oh no, this is going to be another depends answer. Because I was thinking, well, it depends on who I'm talking to, what language I would wrap around that. Because if I'm talking to, I work a lot with multidisciplinary clinicians. So if I'm talking to a social worker who works in a specific context, I'm going to use words that I think are going to explain this in a way that speaks to them. If I'm talking to a psychologist, I might use different words, or a behavioralist, I might use different words. So that was the first thing I thought. It's like, oh no, he's asking me for rules. He's asking me for some rules, and
Yeah.
they aren't going to function the same
Okay.
way for everybody who's
Okay.
listening about how I would talk about this. And also, so I don't mean
Well,
that as a cop out.
what goes through your mind as you're sitting across from someone and you're
The
yeah.
first thing that, well, the second thought that I had, Marcel,
Okay.
and
Sorry
yes,
to
it
cut you
relates
off
to what
there.
you just
I want to
said.
hear
No,
all
no,
your
no, no.
thoughts.
No, you like redirected me back to the task that you asked me to do. So the other thing that showed up was just this idea of being a good observer
Uh-huh.
and or a noticer, as we say in the DNAV world. But really I would work very much on that first, probably. So, can you observe the process of thinking, your process of thinking? Can you observe what's showing up for you? How physiologically, thought wise, can you observe your environment really well? Can you shift your attention? So, mindfulness, I guess, but very much can you observe the relational, like what's happening between you and the client? Can you observe more than just the topography of their verbal behavior? So, can you observe more than the words they're saying? Um, do you notice? Do you notice the flow of the behavioral stream? I suppose. Like, can you notice? Um, ask yourself things like, "Huh." Be curious. I guess curiosity. I was thinking earlier when I was talking about behavior analysis and what I love about ABA, but the curiosity repertoire um, of being curious about the function. Like, whoa, okay, I was talking about this, and then I noticed this happen. What's going on there? Like, instead
Mm-hmm.
of making assumptions, being curious about what's happening. So I think I would start there. I think that you can't be a good behavior analyst without having good observing or assessing skills. And that process of functional assessment that we keep talking about through your podcast,
Mm-hmm.
you can't be good at that if you're not a good observer. But you have
Okay.
to be a good data collector.
Yeah.
And Kelly Wilson talks about this quite beautifully, I think, in his Mindfulness for Two book, which is one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
practitioner manuals. But being able to sit in the stream and just observe and look around and shift your attention and notice all the
Yeah.
data that's available to you, and then be able to then you can start choosing what to attend to and manipulating the context in that process of function also. So by that I mean examples of deciding, well, I'm going to say this and see what happens, or I'm going to move my body like this and see what
Mm-hmm.
happens, or I'm going to do something else and see how the client responds to that. That's what I mean, and what Emily, I think, means by manipulating context.
Mm-hmm.
You're either adding something, so you're saying something, or you're doing something, or you're shifting it in some other way. It could look like asking a question. That's also important in analysis and getting data, and holding it all lightly. So just again, holding it lightly in the sense of not getting hooked by content, just
Mm-hmm.
observing. Um, so I would start there, and I Lisa Coyne and I have talked about how do we how do you like actually I'm working with a kid right now. This is kind of a
I
cool
think I
good
think I
way
have
to
a
think
kid at
about
my
this.
window knocking right now. Speaking of kids,
Oh.
he wants
Hi.
to say hi. This is my
Hi.
this is my son Misha. ¿Qué haces aquí? Ciao. Bye. Honey.
Bye. So I'm working with this a kid right now, and I'm thinking also this is different ways that I might explain getting in this space that I'm talking about to different kinds of people who don't speak behavior lingo. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with a young person right now who is an athlete, and we were talking. I just started working with them, and we talked about mindfulness in the sense of when you're playing a sport. Sports people talk about getting in the flow,
Mm-hmm.
right? DBT people, I think, talk about fully participating, like participation, like being fully at one
Yeah.
with what you're doing. And so that makes me think about what I'm saying as being a really good observer and being really present and in the flow, or in the um, not in the language based space,
Mm-hmm.
but being in the observer space. And that's kind of when I was like, Lisa Coyne and I have been talking about that. I talked to Lisa about that. When I come out of a session sometimes when I know when I'm in that, I've been in that space, when I've been fully participating in the session, I've been really present, because I can't necessarily put words. I come out and I'm like, wow, that was a really, that was a really good session, but I can't tell you exactly what it was that I did. I was so present that I was just doing it. I was in the flow with the client. But I can kind of say more generally, bigger picture, I guess functionally, kind of what was happening, but I can't really like narrate. Well, they said this, and then I said that, and then because that's so content focused. So I don't know if that, I feel like I've got off topic a little bit, but
I want to just mention that, those kinds of sessions and that kind of work is so energizing. And when I'm in the content, it drains me much more.
Yes, I fully agree. When you're in the functions or just flowing in the flow, I agree. It's not as draining, and you are just kind of rolling with it. Yeah. So I think that's what that observer skill is where I would start to try, because you can't do functional analysis or functional assessment, good functional assessment, without being able to be in that space. And to also, and of course, again, I would talk about, you are part of the context there. So you've got to be, working under that kind of assumption that you are part of the process. You're not like a scientist who's in some other, behind a plexiglass window observing a rat in a cage doing its thing. And I would argue actually that that's still part of the context, but it's, you know what I mean? We're actually in the room. The person is responding to us, right? They are interacting with us, and that really matters. So those two things I think are really important to start with.
Okay. I don't know. Given our time right now, I'm wondering if maybe we could jump into that kind of role play I was talking about, and
sure.
And I could talk about it, and you can ask me what you want to, whatever, to better understand, and depending, on how it goes, we'll flow with that, and then maybe talk about some function afterwards around.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, just my son, and I have he's got an older sister, and I really, really value being present with them and playing with them and giving them my all, being fully present. And I find myself oftentimes like kind of like yelling at myself for, checking my phone or checking my email, and not like kind of putting those things aside. And it's kind of like a battle that goes on inside of me, and what am I teaching them? That's like number one. Like, I don't want to be teaching them avoidance, or whatever, just some unhealthy behavior, a way of being in the world. And I don't know, I just think about like, well, maybe I should put some strict rules, like, I only check my email once a day, and it's during these certain hours, like kind of like, abstinence. It's like harm reduction versus abstinence approach. And, and also I think it's kind of like this, where I'm at in terms of like kind of dethroning my mind and technology, so that every time I have a thought, or every time my device has a blink, I don't need to run to it. And so it's a kind of it's a battle.
Yeah. I can feel the struggle. I can feel the struggle as you're talking to me, with just, on the one hand, you're telling me that this really matters to you, that you spend more present time with your kids, but that you keep getting pulled out of it and hooked. And I can feel, go ahead.
Oh, and I just want to also mention that it's not just with, if I have a device with me, which, I've gone back to a semi-smartphone, because the it was just that's all I needed. And it can just be like if we're at the park across the street, and I'm just off, and I want to be like, I'm figuring things out, and I'm thinking about, all these things I've got going on in my life, and I'm not with them, and I want to be with them, you know, and I know I can't do that 100% of the time. And I think that's, you know, that's like that perfectionist. I have a perfectionist thing in me that's like, you know, and maybe like I kind of see other parents who are, you know, not too present with their children, and I, you know, I judge them, and I'm kind of, maybe that's like part of my inspiration to like, I'm not, that's I don't want to be like that. I want to be here.
Yeah. I can feel that, like a sense of urgency, and in the way that you're kind of telling me that this, you know, I keep getting hooked and I want to be this, and it's really hard, and I'm getting pulled constantly. I can feel that. And I'm wondering, I think I would really love to slow down a wee bit and ask you, what is it like when you say you want to be more present with your kids? Like, what is it about that is important to you, or what does that feel like? Like, is there a time where you felt that you are present with your kids? What does it feel like? What is important to you about that?
Well, it's important to me to be like really knowing who they are, and for them to feel seen and heard and appreciated, and then also just to have fun. I think they have like so much to teach me about being loose and just enjoying and being in sensations, you know, and playing, and so yeah, I want to model that for them, and then maybe there's some components of things that I wish I had more of when I was in their place, you know, and yeah, like, and also it's like this like modeling of like, you know, whether or not I have stuff going on in my own head or in my own life, that's not like alpha and omega. Like I can still be acting in this value oriented way, and I want to show them that.
Yeah. So I'm hearing like that there's an important piece of this, of you being available to them, and, you know, supporting their presence as kids, I guess, like developing their own little personalities and who they are as people. But I'm also hearing, I'm also hearing that this is important for your quality of life too, that there's something about being present with your kids that feels really important from a richness of your perspective, so it's not just about them, it's about being with them, yes, and also it's about showing up for yourself, I guess. That's what I'm kind of hearing. Yeah. And you know, I'm having some thoughts about how easy it would be for me to jump in and start trying to problem solve this with you. Like, you know, and just like you did, right? So at the beginning of talking with me, you were immediately telling me, well, what if maybe I could set some boundaries? Maybe I could like only do it this, you know, have my phone put away the rest of the time and only have it available to me. So like problem solving. But I'm wondering, I guess I'm resisting the urge to do that, to join you in that, because I'm wondering how helpful, you know, I'm thinking like you're a very capable person, Marcel, and if that problem solving was working, I'm thinking you wouldn't be talking to me about this right now. So I'm sort of trying to be curious about how I might support you with this value other than problem solving the technology.
Well, can I tell you a brief little story about?
Yeah, like, I would love to hear the story.
Yeah, you know, my mind is like kind of like it likes the word more a lot. It's you know, it's like, oh, I'm enjoying this. I need to get more. And today we were coming back from something we did, the three of us, myself and my two children, and they were in the back seats and the car seats, and I was driving, and I was I was noticing my mind kind of like being like, hey, you should be interacting more, you should be talking more, you should, you know. And I was just kind of like noticing that, and then couple of minutes later, my daughter said, how did they like invent numbers and letters?
That is the coolest question.
And I thought, and she's almost 5. She's gonna be 5 here next month. And I was like, well, there's my fucking answer, you know? I mean, it's like, you know, she had some space to just think. And, you know, so there was something, it was a really beautiful thing there for me.
Do you, I know I can almost, I also just met your son and he's so, so cute. So I can't
Okay.
even imagine what your daughter's like and how sweet that moment must have been.
Yeah.
And I can feel the sweetness of it as you're talking about it. And the interesting thing about that for me, Marcel, is that was like a tiny moment, and you have been talking about how you want more presence in general, and this
Mm.
broad, like overwhelming actually demand that you're making of yourself to be more present all the time.
Hmm.
Um, and you didn't literally say that, but that's what I was feeling when you were talking to me. And perhaps I don't know what you think about this, perhaps it's about noticing more of those tiny moments, um, and what it might be like to just have more of those little moments throughout
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
Um,
The word that came up for me as you said that was kind of manufacturing
mhm.
versus allowing.
Yeah, yeah. To allow those tiny moments and to be really present for those little tiny moments, sweet spots, or think, or
Hmm.
however you want to think about them, and what that
Yeah.
might be like, and how
And,
that
and
might.
and yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. And it does kind of pull me into a dialogue I've been having with myself a lot lately. And that's like, what is happening in mindfulness?
Hmm.
Am I defending against the stuff I don't want to
Hmm.
that I don't want to think about? Or am I know ACT is like, we're going to fully embrace it and go give it a, you know, wet, sloppy hug and kiss.
Maybe,
Maybe
right?
if it, yeah, maybe. What's the
Well,
maybe there?
what if it is about just being curious and allowing? Like you, I like that word that you used, Marcel, allowing, or almost like I'm imagining allowing yourself to just look look and be curious. And then it isn't about like fully like hugely rushing in, or as fully embracing. I mean, you don't have to. I think this is a Robin Walserism. Crediting. We're see how I'm trying to credit everybody
Hmm.
today after our conversation. But
Yeah.
um, something that struck me about her way of thinking about ACT and values was she said, you don't have to. You can wade into the pool, right? You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's not about jumping in fully and embracing and hugging and sloppy kissing?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's about wading in? I mean, you can jump in the deep end if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to do that, but what if it's about wading in and pausing and looking and being curious, um, and allowing with curiosity? I think. What if it's that?
No. I yeah. What if?
Mhm.
I really like the idea, and um, just trying
Because
to
I don't
allow
know
my
about you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Marcel.
I'm just trying to allow my mind to and my I just trying to allow that in, you know, right now,
Mm-hmm.
and not I'm finding that I my mind wants me to, you know, say something witty or say something that's capturing what you just said in the essence, and I'm allowing that to be there too, and just
Mm-hmm.
and absorb. Yeah.
Like, what if your kids need, rather than you full force jumping into the pool and being like, we got to do all the mindfulness, I got to be present all the time, you were to just allow those moments or wade in slowly? I don't know whether that would feel different. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I am just appreciating this curiosity and the gentleness, and because there's a certain the mindfulness that I'm talking about is a very aggressive kind of mindfulness. Yeah. Because it means that I'm not distracted. It means that I'm, yeah. And maybe what I'm gathering, there's some compassion there around being distracted and allowing for that.
Yep. Yeah. And that the sense of turning, noticing, allowing, and choosing.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm wondering as we kind of start to get closer to our end here is if do you think it would be helpful as we kind of break from that? Thank you very much for wading in with me or whatever we did. I don't know if we waited or if we
I don't know, or meandered or
yeah. If maybe you could just take a few moments to step back and do some BCBA stuff around this.
Yeah, I can definitely tell you some things I noticed. So I was noticing my own process very much. So when you started talking about your this challenge that you're having with wanting to be more present with your kids, what was showing up for me was thoughts like, oh my God, I'm not, what if I don't know, oh no, where's this going? What am I supposed to be doing? And then I got to fix this, right? So my problem solving.
Yeah.
So, and I named that a little bit, which was purposeful for me because I was trying to get out of that. I was trying to figure out how to notice that my urge was to help you jump into that problem solving mode with you and come up with ways to fix this. And that was showing up. So that's partly why I named that for you. And because I really felt the urgency initially. You're like, I got to tell you all the things. So here's my problem, and I tried this, and so I was noticing that and responding to that, and feeling like if I responded to that in the problem solving mode, I was probably reinforcing the problem. I was probably reinforcing something that you've already been doing over and over, right? You've been thinking about this for a while. You've probably been trying to solve this problem for a while. And if I jumped into that kind of mode with you, we would just be spinning our wheels and doing more of the same. That was the kind of sense that I got. And so I was trying to put down my urges to all the ways that I felt like I wanted to respond, which was how you were functioning for me, to try and create a space where maybe I could try and do something different that might make you do something different that might help lead us in a different way. And I had no idea, what then shows up for me is I don't know what to do. If I don't do that, I don't know what to do. Go ahead.
So you're paying attention to urgency. You're paying, just to be really clear, my tone, the speed I'm talking, just my presence. There's a lot of things that you're observing in that.
Yes, correct.
Tell you that I'm urgent.
And the way that you're talking, which tells me that you've had this conversation with yourself before or with other people before, that it felt like this is not a new thing. And noticing how your body language, your tone and pitch and the way you're talking and the things you're saying, how they were hooking me, how they were functioning for me. And I noticed I immediately wanted to problem solve or be okay, so how often are you attending to your phone? Do you have your phone with you? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe you could try that. Maybe you try this. That I could get carried along with the content and what was happening there. So I was definitely attending to that and attending to my own, how it was functioning for me, and then thinking, okay, I need to figure out a way to slow down here and create a space where we might be able to do something different. So we might get some behavioral variability. We might be able to disrupt this pattern. And the piece that stood out to me, I was also thinking about values just as a way to maybe I can ask about that and bring some different functions into the conversation, some repetitives, as Emily would say. And that might help me kind of know where to go or to see what happens. So that was kind of my process, but it was very much, and because I'm anxious too, because I'm talking live and thinking, having all these thoughts about like, oh my God, I'm going to be so crap at this. And I had to do a lot of like willingness to be with that stuff and just like pause and again, not try to fix that either. Like not try to just to let this flow the way it's going to go and not and just see what happens. Like I had to be very much willing to wade into the pool with you and not try to jump in the cold deep end and thrash about and like try to like fix it. And so I don't know. Is that helpful?
Yes, it's very helpful. And it's I think a really important point about role plays and real plays is that there is a sense of, showing something, whereas in therapy, it's not like you're not guided by that as much.
You don't have 3 minutes to like,
or right now, you got to go right now. So thank you so much for sharing your awesomeness. I really appreciate your perspective, and I think it adds a lot to this voyage that I've been on. It's helped me to really unpack some things and see things in a new light, and I'm excited to metabolize these. So I'm thank you, very grateful. Thank you, Evie.
I'm very honored to be on here with both of our imposter anxiety, all our stuff.
I think the cat is the most confident. The cat and my son.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Get me out of here. It's time.
And so just want to add that Evie's available for consultation. She does case consultation on ACT and OCD and autism. So I will put a link for your contact at the New England Center. And thanks so much. But I'm getting stronger. Okay. They take a piece of me, but I'm getting stronger. They take a piece of me, but I'm getting stronger. They take a piece of me.